You are now tuning in to the Going North podcast with your host, best-selling author, and professional speaker, and member of the John Maxwell team, Dominic Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, we're going to hear the voice of a different author sharing their gifts, stories, and expertise to help you charge forward in life. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, we bring you some extraordinary humans from across the globe doing some fabulous things. Today's no different because this wonderful author right here, this wonderful best-selling author, taught behavioral design at the Stanford Graduate School of Business and the Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design at Stanford. This wonderful gentleman right here writes, consults, and teaches about the intersection of psychology, technology, and business at nirandfar.com. And his writing has been featured in the Harvard Business Review, the Atlantic, Time Magazine, The Week, Inc., and Psychology Today. And funny enough, 5 years ago in 2014, his book Hooked is a Wall Street Journal bestseller and has been translated in over 18 languages. So you know that book is legal, y'all. And it won the Marketing Book of the Year award from 800 CEO Read. And you're probably wondering who this wonderful author right here is. If you didn't check out the title, it's the one, the only, and he himself, Nir Eyal. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Dom. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yes, indeed. It's great connected with you, man. You've been making leaps and bounds and strides and climbing mountains and soaring all over the darn Milky Way galaxy, man. How's it feel?
Well, yeah, it's been a wild ride. I'll be honest with you. It's when I got started in this business of telling people that you can actually design products and services using consumer psychology. I had to convince people that behavioral design was real 5-6 years ago when I wrote my first book, Hooked. Today, it's sold 250,000 copies. It's on every shelf of a big company that you know of in Silicon Valley that use this book. And today we have the opposite problem. Today we have so many products and services that are so good at hooking people that we have to find ways to disconnect. And so that kind of led me to my next book, Indistractable, How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life. Not that there's necessarily a dichotomy here. The idea is that, products can be great. They can help us improve our lives, but sometimes we overdo them and we use them too much. And so how do we make sure that we can get the best out of technology without letting them get the best of us?
Oh, yes, indeed. Great way to sum it all up. And when I read that in your intro, it's like, yeah, you got them all hooked. Now it's like, all right, you're too far hooked, my friend. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like you're on the cutting board now.
For most people, for most businesses out there, this is still their problem, right? Only very, very, very few companies are worried about having users use too much, but that is a problem, even for companies that you think, Facebook and Instagram and Google, they want us to use the product all the time. Not so much. They also know that if you use the product too much and it hurts you, it doesn't benefit the customer regrets using your product or service, guess what? Eventually they stop using it, they moderate use, or they find a competitor product that has less harm associated with it. So it's even in these companies' interest to make sure that they're not burning people out.
Yeah, amen to that, and that's happening all over the globe, man. Heck, was even powerful that story you told in the beginning of the book, how it's like, yeah, you're with a daughter and then just had that story of like, what would your superpower be? And you couldn't even answer it.
Right. Right, yeah, so I'll relay that to your listeners just to fill everyone in. So a few years after I wrote Hooked, I was sitting with my daughter and we had some daddy-daughter time together, and we had a whole afternoon, this beautiful day of daddy-daughter time, and I had this book that we worked through together of activities that daddies and daughters could do together. And one of the activities was to ask each other this question of, if you could have any superpower, what superpower would you want? And I wish I could tell you what she said, but in that moment, I wasn't paying attention. I was distracted with my phone. And she got the message. She left the room. By the time I lifted up my head from my screen, she was gone. And so I blew it. I blew this perfect moment with my daughter because I was engrossed with something on my phone. And so that's when I knew, wow, I really have to do something about this. This is not right. And so, I thought the problem was technology. I thought that, that was the real source of the problem, the technology in my hand. But then what I learned, the more I studied the psychology of distraction, I learned that actually the technology is just a proximal cause, not the root cause, that the root cause of distraction starts from within us, that all distraction starts from within.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That wonderful inner compass indeed. I love the fact that you mentioned the book. It's like, yeah, you really can't call certain things a distraction if you don't know what's it's distracting you from. It's like you had that moment of awareness with that daddy-daughter moment. It's like, oh man, I ruined it.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to other folks that may still not have gotten to that point where they're not aware of what they're letting themselves be distracted away from.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If that was the only time that it happened, that I'd be lying to you. It happened more than one occasion, not only in my personal life, but also my professional life, right? I mean, I sit down at my desk and I say, okay, I'm really going to do that project I need to work on right now. I got to crank out some work that requires some serious focus. And I'll do it right after I check my email or my Slack channel or, this one quick thing in the news looks important. I should probably check that first. And so the problem is much bigger than just any single distraction. Even when I got rid of the technology, right? I got rid of the apps and on my cell phone. I just bought a feature phone for $12 on Alibaba. All I could do is take phone calls and receive text messages. And I still would get distracted. I would look at my desk and I'd say, oh, I should clean up the desk. Desk is messy. Or I'd take out the trash, and I'd still get distracted from all kinds of things. Distraction is not new. If Mark Zuckerberg tomorrow were to say, hey, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm shutting down Facebook. I'm unplugging Facebook. It's going to go dark. I have enough money. Okay, I'm done. You think people would stop getting distracted? No, they'd go back to what has always distracted human beings: gossip, the news, soap operas. You mentioned, you name it. There's all kinds of distractions out there in the world. The technology did not start the problem of distraction. What we want to do, my mission, is to inform people about how to end the problem of distraction. This is something we can get a grip on if we know what to do. I will tell you that it's more difficult than ever. I mean, there are infinite opportunities for distraction with these technologies in our pocket, but it is an age-old problem. Socrates and Plato talked about it 2,500 years ago. They talked about what they called akrasia, this tendency that we have to do things against our better interest. And it turns out that there are some really great ways to put distraction in its place, to make sure that we don't constantly get sucked into doing things that we later regret.
Amen to that indeed, and it's very powerful and very true what you said there about there's infinite ways to distract ourselves nowadays. It's just an age-old problem, yeah. Just that we got even more ways to do it than ever before.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, if you're looking for it, I will tell you, as an industry insider, I mean, my first book was Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products. I know how these products are built. And I will tell you that if you are susceptible to distraction, if you don't arm yourself with the tools and techniques to prevent yourself getting distracted, no doubt they're going to get you. They're going to get you. They're going to get your colleagues. They're going to get your kids. They will find, I mean, there are more ways to get distracted today than ever before. And if you think it's bad today, just wait a few years, right? Who knows what's going to be next? Virtual reality, augmented reality, who knows what the next distraction? I promise you there will be other distractions. We're going to think that Facebook and Instagram and iPhones are child's play. That's nothing compared to what's coming down the pipes. So we got to prepare ourselves right now to make sure that we can do what we say we're going to do. There will be two types of people in the world: people who let their attention and their behavior be controlled and manipulated by others, and people who understand what's going on and make sure that they become indistractable.
Amen to that indeed. Amen to that indeed. Heck, maybe down the road they should probably make a movie where the zombie apocalypse is where the smartphones fight back and they grow arms and legs or something.
Like, yeah. It's almost there. It's almost there. I mean, if you look at the media today, there is kind of this perception that the media loves beating up on big tech, right? They love creating the story of the big bad boogeyman of technology, that Mark Zuckerberg and Silicon Valley is controlling your brain. And they are certainly influencing your behavior. There's no doubt these products are designed to be engaging, to be habit-forming even. But guess what? That's what we as consumers want. We want our products to be engaging. Are we supposed to say, hey, Netflix, stop making your shows so good that I want to watch them all the time? No. Are we going to tell Instagram and we're going to tell Facebook, hey, can you please not make this product so engaging, so enticing all the time? I want to use it, and please stop doing that. Make your product crappy, okay? No. If you hold your breath waiting for these companies to change, you're going to suffocate. So instead of waiting around for these companies to change, do something about it. And I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. You only have to do 4 things. The first step to becoming indistractable is to master your internal triggers. Now, this is the part that people say, oh, no, this is the woo-woo, self-helpy stuff. But this is actually all backed with peer-reviewed studies. I'm not one of these self-help gurus that says, oh, it worked for me, cold showers. Everybody should take cold showers, right? There's no scientific evidence for that. I only talk about stuff that is backed by peer-reviewed studies. I taught at Stanford for many years. I'm very skeptical about even the studies, let alone just somebody's, favorite technique. So the best thing you can do, the very first step we have to start with, is acknowledging that everything we do, all human behavior, is a desire to escape discomfort. And so that means that time management is pain management. That when we procrastinate, when we don't do what we say we're going to do, we are escaping an uncomfortable sensation. And so what I do is teach folks how to recognize that uncomfortable sensation, get curious about it as opposed to becoming contemptuous about it. A lot of people, when they feel bad about wanting to do something, they say, oh, I don't feel like it, so there must be something wrong with me. I have short attention span. I have an addictive personality. I'm constantly distracted, so that means something's wrong with me. No, you're a human being in 2019, and that's the world we live in. All of us feel these uncomfortable emotional states. The question is, what do we do with them? Instead of beating yourself up, get curious about that sensation and then learn to channel it in a healthy manner as opposed to a hurtful manner. And so there's a lot more detail about how to do that, but that's the basic step. Master the internal triggers. The second step is to make time for traction. That, so many times, I have a case study in the book, actually, of this woman who, complained to me about Hooked, about all these products that use the Hook model and distract her all the time, between the news and what's going on Twitter and Instagram and what's happening with her boss and her kids. Everybody's distracting her all day long. And I said, wow, that's really tough. I'm sorry to hear that. Can you tell me what you got distracted from, right? What is it that you got distracted from? And she takes out her calendar, and she shows it to me, and guess what? It's blank. There's nothing on it. Just completely white space. And it turns out 2/3 of people listening to my voice right now don't keep a calendar. Well, guess what? You can't call something a distraction unless you know what it is distracting you from. So even though 1/3 who keeps a calendar, many of us don't do it correctly. The correct way to keep a calendar is to account for literally every minute of your day. If something is worth doing, it's worth putting on your schedule. Why? Because that is the only way that we can live out our values. I should be able to tell what's important to you if I look at how you spend your time. Do you have time on your calendar for the important things at work, the things that really require your attention and focus? Do you have time for yourself to take care of your body, your mind? Do you have time for your family, your friends, your community? These kind of things won't just happen in this day and age, because if you don't plan your day, somebody else is going to plan it for you. So you have to turn your values into time and make time for traction. The third step is to hack back the external triggers. So these are all the pings, dings, rings, and things that prompt us to distraction. So it's all the notifications on our phone. It's an office colleague stopping by our desk and saying, hey, what's up? Let's chat in the middle of a focused work session. It's the distraction on your desktop. It's meetings. It's emails. it's all of these things that we need to hack back. As opposed to letting the designers of these products and services hack our behavior, it's time we hack back. And it turns out some very simple things that you can do to start hacking back, not only our technology, but also our environments. So in the research I did, it turns out that one of the most frequent distractions that knowledge workers face is this pernicious setup that we all work in these days of an open floor plan office. That this open floor plan office, people just stop by your desk and say, hey, what's up? You want to chit-chat? Turns out that has nothing to do with technology distraction. That's just our physical environments causing us to constantly get distracted. So in every copy of my book, there's actually a cardstock piece of paper that you can pull out, you can rip out, and you can fold into thirds, and you can put on your monitor or your screen that tells your colleagues, it's in bright red, it says, I'm indistractable, please come back later, right? So we want to block out those external triggers that would otherwise lead us to distraction. And then finally, the fourth step, and by the way, there's 8 different environments, all sorts of techniques for how to hack back external triggers, but we don't have time to go through every single one. The fourth step is to prevent distraction with PACT. So this uses a very old technique called making a pre-commitment, which is all about thinking in advance about when you might get distracted and taking steps before you get distracted to prevent that distraction from occurring. And by the way, I want to make sure people know out there, this is what we do last. We don't want to jump the gun and use this technique before we've done the other 3. This technique can be dangerous and can backfire. So you want to make sure you do the other 3 steps of mastering the internal triggers, make time for traction, and hack back before you prevent distraction with PACT. So in this case, what we can do is we can actually use technology to prevent technology distraction. Let me give you a story from my own life. So a few years ago, I can get personal, right? Can I get a little vulnerable here?
Oh, of course.
Okay, can we talk about some sensitive subjects?
Ain't nothing wrong with that. We go north here.
Okay, good. All right. So in this case, we're going to go south. I want to talk about my sex life for a minute. So I've been married for 20 years. I'm just happy I have a sex life at this point. But I noticed that a few years ago, my wife and I were not getting the time to be intimate that we used to. And the reason was that we were caressing our iPhones and fondling our iPad as opposed to being with each other. And this was terrible. And this would happen night after night after night for years. And when I started the research around distraction, I tried to implement these various techniques. So after we did the other 3, one technique that we found to be incredibly effective was that we made what's called an effort pact. An effort pact is when you put some bit of friction, some bit of effort in between you and the behavior you don't want to do. So here's what I did. I went to the hardware store. I bought myself a $5 outlet timer. And I used this outlet timer to plug into my wall. And whatever I plugged into that outlet timer turns off at a time that I set. So every night at 10 p.m., that outlet timer turns off my internet router. So you see what I did now? Every night. Now, I could go back in. I could fiddle with it. I could turn back on my internet, of course. It's not that hard. But it's that little bit of effort, that little bit of friction that prevents me from doing it and say, oh, okay, that's past 10 o'clock. The internet shuts off. Time to go to bed. And so the internet turns off, and hopefully my wife turns on. Just kidding. Sorry, that was I had to take that pun. Sorry. That was terrible. That was terrible.
Hey, I'm all for it.
Just want to make sure you're listening.
Hey, I'm all for it, though. It's like, yeah, all the studies came back for your benefit, because it's like, man, I don't want to take all that effort to, like, turn the dark switch back on. I was like, at 10 p.m., just call it quits.
Call it a day.
Yeah. Just make it easier. Yes, indeed. And some powerful gems you drop there, especially the whole time management being pain management. It's like that's like a whole new dimension right there when it comes to the whole time management thing. Yes, it was definitely for me a huge revelation, because in most
productivity books and self-helpy type books, they don't tell you how important it is to manage your emotions. That's the reason we do or don't do things, is because we don't feel like it. And unless we know how to deal with those uncomfortable sensations, we're always going to find ways to distract ourselves. It's not the tools we use, it's that these tools use us unless we know how to manage our own feelings, right? A habit-forming product can't take hold and create a habit unless it attaches itself to these internal triggers, to these uncomfortable emotional states.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right indeed. That's right. It only has the power if you give it the power. Don't touch it.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It only has power unless we give it the power. So that's really the message of my book, is that we are more powerful than we think, that we can use these things. I don't believe this nonsense that, some technologies are good and some technologies are bad. They rot your brain. They hijack your brain. They addict you. That's all rubbish. That's not true. That's not based in science. We don't have to fear these things. We just have to know how to use them in a way that benefits us as opposed to enslaving us.
Yep, that's right. That's right indeed. It's like telling yourself, like, hey, this is what it's like to get better at something when you have that whole quote-unquote fail moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A big part of it is about self-compassion. It's about understanding that sometimes we fall off track. That's okay. But it's about doing better the next time around. That being indistractable, it's a made-up word. I made it up so I can define it any way I like. Being indistractable is not about never getting distracted. I still get distracted sometimes. Being indistractable is about striving to do what you say you're going to do. It's about not constantly getting distracted by the same thing every day, right? What's the definition of insanity? The definition of insanity, I can't remember who said it. Some people say it's Einstein, but I don't think it was. So some people say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing every day and expecting different results. Well, that's what we do, right? We constantly, I didn't get my to-do list done again, right? Day after day, I didn't do the things I needed to do. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't eat right. I didn't get my work done day after day. And we keep expecting different results? No, we have to do something different day after day. The thing is, we don't know what the framework is. We don't know how to think about the problem of distraction. And so that's what I wanted to add to the conversation. A simple 4-part model that you could say, okay, am I mastering my internal triggers? Did I make time for traction? Can I hack back these external triggers, and can I prevent the distraction with a pack? That's all you need to do.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. Hack back, baby. That's right. Not no hatchback either. That's right. Oh, man. Well, yeah, man, definitely great stuff indeed. And I love the fact that you just gave a simple tip to use. It's like the whole 10-minute rule thing. It's like, yeah, you got the 5-second rule, Mel Robbins' goodness, but it's like, yeah, if you really want to fight off the urge, the 10-minute rule, just put the mess on the side.
Yeah. No, I use the 10-minute rule, man, let me tell you, almost every day. So the 10-minute rule says that you can give in to any temptation, whether it's that piece of chocolate cake, whether it's that the email you want to check, or Google something, or check something out on YouTube when you should be doing something else, when you should be working. You can give in to that temptation after 10 minutes. And it's amazing how effective this technique is, right? So all you do for 10 minutes is you do what's called surfing the urge. So what I want you to do is, when you feel that itch, right, to do something you know you shouldn't do, that you're tempted to do, set a little timer, right? Tell your phone, hey, Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes. And in those 10 minutes, I want you to get curious about what you're feeling, right? Think about that sensation. Don't beat yourself up. Don't berate yourself. Just get curious about that sensation. And what tends to happen almost always is that sensation, that feeling, will crest and subside, right? That's why it's called surfing the urge, like a wave. And in those 10 minutes, you'll find that you'll either get back to work, you'll do what it is you wanted to do, or at the end of those 10 minutes, hey, feel free to give in to that temptation, because you're building that muscle of recognizing those emotions, sitting with them, and starting to gain control over them. And let me tell you, 99% of the time, by the time those 10 minutes have rolled around, I'm back at work. I'm back on the task I wanted to work on.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's In a way, it's almost like you found something else to distract yourself from the nonsense
from
that
the
you're
bad
gonna.
feeling.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. It's really about those what I call the internal triggers, those negative emotional states. And once you can control those negative emotional states and turn them into helpful behaviors as opposed to harmful behaviors, you can do anything. That's why I called the book Indistractable, because kind of full circle from where we started with the story with my daughter. Indistractable is like indestructible. They sound very similar. And if you ask me what superpower I would want, it's this. This is why I wrote the book. This is the skill of the century. This is a superpower. I mean, imagine how powerful we could be if we did what we said we're going to do in business and life. I mean, you can do anything, right? As long as it's what you say you're going to do with intent.
Amen to that indeed. With intent, definitely the right intent too. That's right indeed. Well, and speaking of superpowers, if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again in the current year with all of your knowledge and experience, and especially the indistractable superpower, what advice would you give to yourself?
The insight I would give to myself is to not take things quite so seriously. I have a tendency to take things too seriously, and I think I wish I would have learned the lesson a long time ago that, you know what, the big picture, the stuff that you think is super important, and, that big deadline or that sales meeting or whatever it might be, the office politics, in the course of time, this too shall pass.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. This too shall pass indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. Well, all right, for those who want to keep in contact with you and all the wonderful things that you're doing, what's the best way to reach out to you?
So my website is nirandfar.com. Nir is spelled like my first name. It's spelled N-I-R, so N-I-R and far, nirandfar.com. And my book is called Indistractable, How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life. It's available wherever books are sold. And if you go to Indistractable.com, it's I-N-Distract, A-B-L-E, Indistractable.com. There are all kinds of free tools and resources, whether you buy the book or not, doesn't matter. All kinds of tools out there, like an 80-page workbook, et cetera, that you can get there at Indistractable.com.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. Go on out there, pick up a copy of the book. Heck, pick up multiple copies. Heck, buy 20 copies. Enough for all 10 fingers and 10 toes. And let the folks know, it's like, hey, you know what? Are you distracted, buddy? Yeah, by you. Well, this book is Indistractable. Read this good stuff right here. And check out that Nir and Far blog, too. That's right. Change your life for the better. That's right. Not butter.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. Any parting words for the folks still listening?
Well, parting words is that, I want people to remember that they are more powerful than they believe, that a lot of us have these self-sabotaging beliefs that we're powerless, there's nothing we can do, that these technologies kind of, have our way with us, and those are self-defeating stories. We need to remember that we are more powerful. There's so much more that we can do to make sure we live the lives we want, that we can control our attention and focus if we believe we can. That is the first step. Don't believe this rubbish that this technology is addictive and it's hijacking you or whatever, or hijacking your kids' brains. That is nonsense. We have more power if we know what to do.
Hey there, you superstar. Thanks a bunch for making it this far in the podcast. Hope you really enjoyed it. Heck, if you made it this far, that means you really enjoyed it. Be sure to shoot the guest an email or head over to the social media pages and leave them a nice response that you heard them on the Going North podcast, so that way they can continue to be inspired to do great things. And be sure to share this podcast with others that you think would enjoy it as well, because we want to inspire as many people as possible to live their dreams, embrace them, and to do something positive.